And a very happy Monday to you at 12:06 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, after staying quiet for a few weeks for obvious reasons, gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter has emerged.
Please.
To cut an ad vote saying vote yes on Prop 50.
Have you noticed that the spending for Prop 50 has just turned into a who's who of potential candidates who want to promote themselves?
Like Tom Steyer?
And Alex Padilla? And Rick Caruso and Gavin Newsom and now Katie Porter.
It's an excuse to get your face on the TV for a cause that is most likely to pass. Let's see how much we can actually get into this before we rip our hair out.
Your vote yes on Prop 50 is about an act of self-defense for California.
Now, while she was filming this, did she turn around and look at the Golden Gate Bridge and say, get out of my effing shot?
And, of course, listen to the reflective piano in the background.
California has an independent commission.
Not anymore.
And it's not coming back.
And I support it. But Donald Trump is trying to use every...
Donald?
She's from Iowa.
But Donald Trump...
Donald.
The vowels are flat.
But Donald...
Donald.
You know who does that is Hillary Clinton, because she's from just over the border in Illinois, right around the same part of the world.
But Donald Trump...
Donald.
But Donald Trump is trying to use every dirty trick in the book to steal the midterm elections before a single vote has even been cast.
It's like dumping a pot of mashed potatoes on our electoral process.
Who does that?
President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. He's an instrument of divine will. We need him for at least one more term.
We can't afford to be naive.
Boy, she is trying to do everything she can to get the focus off the swearing and on to Prop 50.
This is a targeted...
Oh, this is a hack ad if I ever heard one, just from the music.
Here's what's crazy. You notice all of these ads sound exactly the same. The yes ads, the no ads, the ads for people running for governor, the ads for people running for fill in the blank. These are cookie cutters. And there are consultants who make millions and millions and millions of dollars putting these ads together.
This is a targeted defense mechanism.
I can't even hear you now. The music's so loud.
It sounds like that ride soaring over California at California Adventure.
Maybe she tried to find the legally distinct enough version of that because people have a positive opinion of that ride without getting sued by Disney.
It's possible.
Not a permanent change. I voted yes because we can't afford to lose.
I can't hear you.
Tell the orchestra to keep it down.
Because we can't afford to lose.
See, she wants to make sure that she dispels the rumor that she's louder than a full orchestra.
It is hard to be louder than a full orchestra. Only some can do it.
Because we can't afford to lose 5 congressional seats just because other states decided to cheat the system. Whatever's on your mind, housing, healthcare, education, the environment, we need...
I can't understand a word she's saying now.
You're better off for it.
We need this to fight for you, and Americans are counting on Californians to act.
There you go, an ad for Prop 50 that nobody asked for.
Do they just try to copy everything Steven Spielberg does? Because it sounded like E.T. when E.T. was on the bike.
Look, the world of political consultants and the people that produce these ads are full of some of the hackiest people in the world who are also very well paid for their hackery.
Well, it's because they're working for people who don't really understand television and radio. If you're a candidate for office, you're a candidate because you were on a city council or you were successful in business, fill in the blank. And so you have to rely on the pros to do your spending for you and to make your ads for you. And boy, do they fly right in and take all the money they can. So that's what Katie Porter is doing to try to get you to forget that she slam dunked mashed potatoes on her husband's head.
Get out of my shop.
And that too. Meanwhile, if Proposition 50 passes, it's going to have real-world consequences on any number of communities. One type of community in California that's going to really take it in the teeth is rural California. And Randy, you have an update on that.
For how the possible passage of Prop 50 will affect rural communities in Northern California, here's a report from ABC 7 in the Bay.
Friends Mac Young and Mike Murray love to talk politics. The two Republicans live in California's Sierra foothills.
We love this state. We love the opportunity, and we love what it represents.
But their representation in D.C. might be changing soon.
We're out there blatantly trying to gerrymander and not even trying to hide it at this point.
It's a transparent kind of gerrymander.
They're saying it's transparent, but when they were drawing the lines, they did that in Washington, D.C. They didn't do that here in California. And they had the committee hearing after the lines were already drawn.
That's just how we do things in California. It's like Ricardo Lara having a hearing about that rate hike after he already made the decision to give it to them.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Oh, we know.
To remove representation from people.
When I talk to my neighbors and my friends, they don't understand why their congressional districts are changing, why it's going from a predominantly rural area to something that involves eastern Sacramento in an urban, suburban area.
Republican Kevin Kiley from Rockland is their representative in Congress.
What we have is somebody that understands our needs, what we want in Placer County, and is always accessible to us.
But Murray and Young worry that won't be the case if Prop 50 passes.
We have issues relating to public lands. That's not a concern in East Sacramento. And so...
Yeah, the concerns of the farmers in California are a little different than the people that live in downtown Sac.
And think about the type of people who have been around a long time in Congress in California. Many of them are older. There's news today that Nancy Pelosi is apparently going to retire after tomorrow's election. That's what they think. We don't know for sure. We have a lot of members who have been there a very long time. I think Maxine Waters is in her 80s. I think the congresswoman from Sacramento, Doris Matsui, is either in her late 80s or late 70s, rather, or early 80s. And if you've been around a long time in a safe district, you know your issues. You know your cities. You know what your constituents want. You know what your constituents need. If all of a sudden you have to learn all new issues and you have to try to get on all new committees, good luck getting an 85-year-old to do that. That's just not human nature. That's not how it works. So what's going to happen is they know what they know, and they're going to continue to do that because it's worked out for them before. And if you live in a rural part of the state, you're just going to get ignored.
And so issues like rural hospitals and rural schools and infrastructure and cost of living are things that maybe are not relevant in the new proposed map.
When you have districts drawn, they are going to be focused on the more highly dense urban areas because that's where the votes are.
Prop 50 would make 5 of the state's existing red seats more winnable for Democrats. But in order to do that, Democrats have to give up some power in other districts around the state. An analysis by the ABC7 data journalism team found multiple parts of the state where it will be less blue and more red. Let's look at how the presidential election would have unfolded if the new maps were in place in 2024. A matchup in the new hypothetical District 38 in Southern California has Harris besting Trump 54 to 42%, a slight decrease for Harris. Over in District 4 in Northern California, Harris would have still won roughly 56 to 41%, but that's a nearly 17% increase for Trump, meaning Republicans could have won other races down ballot. But take a look at District 13 in the Central Valley. Here's where it gets really interesting. Harris and Trump would have been in a dead heat. Basically, Democrats are willing to give up power in some places to take the larger prize.
It's a gamble.
It's a gamble because there are blocks of voters in California who are changing their voting patterns. Political coalitions are always evolving. You go back and you look at the New Deal coalition, for example, which is the coalition that the Democrats used for decades. This is FDR's coalition, where you had ethnic whites in the North, think of Catholics. You had Italians, Irish, those people. You had blacks. You had Jews. And then you had Southern whites. Southern whites were a huge part of the New Deal coalition. And then you think about how in the 60s, how Dick Nixon, the Southern Strategy, Barry Goldwater, they started making inroads into those communities, and Southern whites started changing how they were voting. Now Southern whites are the backbone of the Republican Party. But if you go back to when FDR was president, they were the backbone of the Democratic Party. So if you drew up districts, assuming that Southern whites would vote Democrat forever, guess what? At some point, you're going to have a great big surprise. And right now, Latinos are changing the way they vote, especially rural ones. Asians are changing the way they vote. Democrats, they're picking up portions of the old Republican coalition, a lot of the college-educated whites. My point is, if you're drawing these districts based on the current voting patterns, but you know that there's movement going on in certain groups, don't expect those groups to vote for your side forever.
More seats in Congress. And if some of the seats don't go their way, that's what's known as a dummy manager. Democrats here leading the charge say it's their best tool to counter a wave of mid-decade redistricting in red states like Texas and Missouri. A high-stakes battle for the control of Congress, one district at a time.
It's not the right thing to do. Whether it's here, whether it's other places, it's not the right thing to do. And it's kind of embarrassed that we're going down that path.
With voters caught in the middle.
And what voters will decide, we'll hopefully know on Tuesday night. I'll be reporting live from Sacramento to bring you the latest on.
It's going to be really embarrassing if a one-issue election, they can't call it on election night.
Oh, they'll be able to call this one on an election night.
I'll be reporting live from Sacramento to bring you the latest on Election Day. And we have so much more of our reporting on Prop 50. It's really been months in the making on abc7news.com.
So there's the latest on how Prop 50's potential passage will be affecting rural voters.
The real threat for the pro-50 people is not that this is going to go down. Just based on current turnout, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. The threat for them is that instead of getting 5 seats, they could end up getting 3. Because Kevin Kiley could theoretically win. That district is purple. It's a purple district that leans Dem, but it's a purple district. And Darrell Issa represents or will represent a purple district that is also winnable. So if it's a big, heavy Democratic year, then the Democrats will probably win 5 seats. If it's not a heavy Democrat year, then they may end up only winning 3. And then you have to look back at the money that was spent on this, the political capital that was used on this, the fact that the independent commission is essentially gone. I know they say it's going to come back. It's not. And you look at the cost, because there's nothing that happens in politics without there being a cost. And you say to yourself, okay, if you end up only getting 3 seats out of this, was it worth it? Because you also triggered all of those other states to redraw their lines. So now, instead of counteracting Texas, you're going to end up being down more seats than you otherwise would. And the reality of Prop 50, from my vantage point, is that Prop 50 benefits Gavin Newsom more than anyone or anything. Certainly more than the Democratic Party. So if you want Gavin Newsom to be your nominee in 2028, Democrats, this is the way to do it. If you don't want Gavin Newsom to be your nominee, then it's probably a mistake, which is why when all of this started and Gavin Newsom went to the Democratic congressional delegation with this idea, the idea was that they would bluff, not that they would follow through with it, that they would bluff. And then he went on all the podcasts and he started digging his heels in. And he engaged in the bar talk. And his heels got so dug in that they had to move forward with it. Well, the cost is now Ohio's going to do it. Now Florida's going to do it. Now Kansas is going to do it. Now Utah is going to do it. And so now Democrats are not in a stronger place than they were before. They're in a weaker place. Now, they can still win the Congress, Historically, what happens is if you're the party out of power, especially in a president's second term, you do very well in the midterms. So if history repeats itself, the Democrats will do just fine. And they do fine without any of this independent redistricting going on mid-decades, where each one of these states is redrawing their lines. If they look back at this and they say, oh my God, what a waste of time that was, you have to add a second part of that. It's not just a waste of time, it's a waste of money, because there's not endless supplies of money that exist. Every dollar that they're spending on Prop 50 is a dollar that they could be using in the midterm elections that they won't have access to. So as they say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And last week was a week that generated a ton of email. We got a huge response to so many of the shows that we did. If you missed them and you want to go back and find out what you missed out on, Randy, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You could do what George Gascon does to himself in the middle of the night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
You can get the free KABC app. You can get the free KSFO app. Get the KMJ Now app. We're on that station Saturdays at 2. There are so many different ways to listen live to our radio stations and download all the podcasts. And if you are all caught up, you listen to 15 hours a week of this. You listen to 5 hours a week of my solo show, and you listen to all these podcasts. Well, I have one thing to say to you.
Wow, unbelievable.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes George Thorogood at the Bank of America Performing Arts Center on March 8th, 2026. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Nederlander Concerts. Good luck dialing.
And one more point about the podcasts. If you want to go back and listen to Randy's show, the podcast edition of Randy's show later on in the afternoon, because you are watching the Dodgers, the World Series champion Dodgers, the world champion Dodgers, and you want to find out what you missed out on, Randy, people can do that as well.
Yeah, I was up against Game 6 of the World Series and trick-or-treating on Friday. That was fun.
Well, unfortunately, the nightmare for Pacific Palisades fire victims is just never ending. As now that they're dealing with the rubble and the fallout of the fire, the fights with the insurance companies have just begun.
Specifically, when it comes to the FAIR Plan and the FAIR Plan not wanting to cover smoke damage. If your house totally burns down, they'll work with you. But if your house is unlivable because of all the toxic chemicals from the fire, they think a vacuum will do it.
And think about this, because just because your house isn't a pile of ashes, if everything melts and it looks like it belongs in a Tim Burton movie, you still can't live there. But they want to pay you as if you can.
This story is now starting to get national attention. Here is a report that came out over the weekend from NBC News.
In the Pacific Palisades, this devastated community now rebuilding after the Los Angeles fires. That sound of construction, a sign of light at the end of the tunnel.
Is it hard to come back?
Yeah. And yet, 9 months later, many families whose homes are still standing remain stuck in limbo.
It's like a catastrophe on top of a catastrophe, and it shouldn't be that way.
Cow. For Ian Hardcastle, his wife, and 2 young children who have been living in a rental, their home is still just frozen in time since January 7th. The reason...
It's really creepy when you see some of the videos of people going into their home months later because they all still have the Christmas decorations up.
Oh, boy.
The reason, a costly, months-long battle with their insurance company, the California FAIR Plan, over smoke damage.
How much would you say you're out of pocket at this point?
At this point, close to 6 figures. and we haven't even started the work on the home yet. When that starts, the number will skyrocket.
Rebuilding cannot happen until these insurance companies get in order, and nobody at the state is even talking about this.
No. It's been delegated to Ricardo Lara, who's not even in the state. He's a guy who's globetrotting all around the world on the dime of, well, you know who.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Unlike houses that burned down, homes that survived are often left with a murkier claims process. While it may look fine on the surface, experts and homeowners are concerned about what toxins seeped into these homes, whether they can be cleaned up or if they'll pose an invisible health risk. Earlier this year, we were there when the Hardcastles had their home professionally tested by a certified industrial hygienist.
Okay, so these hygienists have been testing for fire emissions in the air, carcinogens, gases, because it's not just about this visible ash that we see here around the home. It's also about the toxins that we can't see.
The Hardcastles say the Fairplan
And you have to really believe these people when they come back and they tell you that everything's A-OK. Look at all the bizarre cancers that people got when they were in the towers on 9/11 and survived.
I mean, we already have questions about the soil testing that even the federal government was doing. Apparently, they didn't dig very deep.
The Hardcastles say the Fairplan denied their request for reimbursement of the hygienic testing they had done. Those results found the fire damage.
Wait, so you got to pay out of pocket to test if there are toxic chemicals that prevent you from living in the house?
I'm telling you, I know that everyone says, yeah, I'd rebuild. Yeah, no fire is going to chase me from my home. 0% chance I would rebuild. I would sell to whomever offered me the most money, and I would move on with my life to put an end to this nightmare.
Those results found the fire damage is serious and extensive based on the presence of cyanide, lithium, lead, chromium, and numerous other carcinogens and contaminants caused by the Palisades fire.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live with any of that.
No, because it whenever you buy a home and you do a remodel, it just seems like it never ends. There's always some project that's never fully complete, and you have to just keep moving forward with it and keep moving forward with it, and then you find new things, and then you have to take care of those, and it's a project that's never fully completed. Well, imagine that on steroids times 10, and that's what this is like.
Based on that report, the Hardcastles contractor recommended taking the home down to the studs, estimated to cost nearly $1.6 million.
So it's a total loss.
That's before you start rebuilding and before you start furnishing.
So take out anything that's porous, cabinets, countertops, drywall, insulation.
When we first met the Hardcastles, the Fairplan had sent them an initial estimate for remediation of about $1,800, an amount that fell within their deductible.
Could you imagine that? You've lost everything, and they are trying to screw you in a transparent way, by the way. They're not being stabbed in the back. They're being stabbed in the front. And they think that they're going to get away with it, and they probably will because no one in the state is forcing them to take care of these people.
Well, and they stand by their tagline. We're the insurer of last resort. You're screwed.
Now, 7 months after our first story aired, following numerous denial letters and the Hardcastles retaining a lawyer, the Fairplan recently increased its offering to around $390,000.
You know, and by the way, for people that are confused, the Fairplan is not a state plan. It was established by the state, but it's a consortium of all the big insurance companies that pay into the Fairplan, and there's a mysterious board that governs everything. They don't have to worry about bad press because they are the insurer of last resort. Hypothetically, you could see all these stories of State Farm denying people over and over again and dropping people before the fires in Palisades, and you might say, I don't want to do business with them anymore. When it comes to the Fairplan, they're the only one that you can do business with.
And go back and listen to what they just said. So the Fairplan, after they received all kinds of negative attention, went back and offered them more money than that initial $1,800 insulting offer. But the number that they came in at is nowhere near the actual cost.
Still, less than a quarter of what they say they need to fix their home. The Fairplan says it's not unusual for a policyholder to point out additional damage or to ask for a reinspection.
Anything that saves it money, it will take that position.
Attorney Dylan Schaffer is representing the Hardcastles and hundreds of others like them who had no option but to sign on with the Fairplan as other insurers have pulled out of these high-risk areas. Known as the insurance.
I mean, we actually there's quite a benefit to the insurance companies for dropping you because they can put you onto a plan that for the most part covers less and costs more. And because they're still a part of that, they're making money.
So you have no other option than to lawyer up and sue your insurance company. But you know how lawsuits go. They move like molasses. So you're now talking about additional years delay on top of what you have to deal with already.
Known as the insurer of last resort, the FAIR Plan was established by the state, but is run by the private insurers that operate here.
The dispute that we will have with California FAIR Plan is when homes...
And by the way, if you want a little history lesson, the FAIR Plan was established in the 60s after the Watts riots, and no one would insure those buildings.
And by the way, the FAIR Plan is not just insuring people in areas like Lake Arrowhead or Big Bear where the fire risk is extreme. I know people who are buying condos in the flats in cities in California who are being put on the FAIR Plan because they can't buy insurance.
Oh, the CBS California did their own investigation, and the majority of FAIR Plan policies are in low wildfire risk areas.
When homes like these are badly damaged, whether it's sufficient to simply go in and mop it up and sponge the walls, or whether it's necessary in many cases to remove building components.
For years, Schaffer has argued the FAIR Plan smoke damage policy is illegal and doesn't meet the state standard to cover all loss by fire. In June, a Los Angeles Superior Court judge agreed, calling the FAIR Plan's policy language requiring direct physical loss evidenced by permanent physical changes unlawful. It was a landmark.
But still, why are we still going through with this? That was back in April.
Think about how much time has passed since this fire burned these homes down. And look at what they're dealing with, where these pictures look eerily similar today than how they looked right after the fire. And think about all the lost time, all the lost hours, all the lost sleep over them just spinning their wheels trying to get this process moving, and you're just moving in quicksand.
We're not even talking about the permitting process. We're not even talking about the Coastal Commission. We're not talking about hiring a contractor. This is the most basic part. You were at a loss, you had a contract, and the insurer will not fulfill that contract.
It was a landmark ruling, but the case is not yet final. So for now, it's not legally binding for families like the Hardcastles. But Schaffer has noticed one interesting change the FAIR Plan has made since. Look at the letter the Hardcastles got before the judge's decision and then the one they got after. That language that was called out as unlawful has now been removed and replaced with an ellipses.
The difference is that FAIR Plan has removed unique language. The problem is they simply have not changed their conduct.
The state's own Department of Insurance recently issued...
Okay, which is the important part. If they aren't being made whole, what does any of it matter?
And what's the point of having a Department of Insurance if they're not intervening on this specific situation?
No, and keep in mind, with the FAIR Plan, it's not like they were buying it at a reduced rate. It's not like they had a bargain policy. They were paying through the nose for a policy that they can't even use.
The state's own Department of Insurance recently issued a cease and desist order against the FAIR Plan for systematically denying and limiting smoke damage claims from wildfire survivors. And shortly after, California's governor called on the carrier to change course and begin processing smoke damage claims expeditiously and fairly.
But they haven't. So obviously, those actions by Gavin and by Laura had no teeth.
No, if you want them to pay what is in the contract, and we're not asking for anything beyond what's in the contract, only what they are legally obligated to pay, you need to lean on them. And leaning on them doesn't mean putting out a press release. It doesn't mean saying, yeah, they need to pay what they owe. You need to force them to do it. You are the regulator. You're the California Department of Insurance. You're the governor. You're the CEO of the state of California. If you want to lean on them, you can. You just have to do it.
We don't have any sort of, nuanced way of understanding what the damages are, and how long the suffering can last.
USC Environmental Studies Associate Professor Monalisa Chatterjee says part of the problem is there are no clear and agreed upon standards for investigating and remediating smoke damage, a shortfall the state's insurance commissioner acknowledged has existed for decades.
Well, he's been in charge of this job for 7 years, and he's known this is a problem and hasn't done anything about it?
Nope.
For a state that has had some of the worst wildfires in our history happen under his watch, you can tell how many homes have not only burnt down, but have been helped with smoke damage, and we're still not doing anything about this.
Well, as it so happens, these problems don't get resolved in Bermuda.
Our insurance mechanism is open-ended. It sort of has this overall umbrella approach where what is included and what is not included has to be debated and has to be proven by the impacted communities.
In the case of the Hardcastles, the FAIR Plan disagreed with the test results done by the family's hygienist. And so last month, the insurer sent their own hygienist to conduct testing. The results...
Wally's discount checking.
And donuts.
And so last month, the insurer sent their own hygienist to conduct testing. The results are pending. While the insurer says it cannot...
Okay, you think it's safe to live in there? You stay in there for a week.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
While the insurer says it cannot comment on individual claims, in a statement to NBC News, the California FAIR Plan said it's been working with the California Department of Insurance over the past year to update and clarify its policy language around smoke damage.
That doesn't mean you're fulfilling contracts.
No. It means you're dealing with a friendly office.
Adding, we remain focused on helping our customers recover and rebuild.
And of course, let's not forget, one of the things Ricardo Lara did right before these fires, in fact, just a couple of weeks before these fires, at the end of last year, was change the rules where it used to be that the risk of companies dumping everyone onto the FAIR Plan was if the FAIR Plan bent belly up, it was the insurers that were going to have to bail it out. Ricardo Lara changed those rules, so if the FAIR Plan goes belly up, and it did, insurers get to pass on those costs to you, the ratepayers.
Thousands of policyholders impacted by the Palisades and Eaton fires have already received payments.
So what's next for the Hardcastles?
Unfortunately, the only real solution for people like Mr. Hardcastle and hundreds of my clients and likely thousands of others is lawsuits. Many of my clients are moving back into toxic homes because they have no choice. Many of them are selling their homes.
While the FAIR Plan has been paying for part of the Hardcastle's rental, time is running out.
We've got to get our house back to where it was. We paid the FAIR Plan thousands of dollars to cover us in a situation like this, and they have not held up to their end of the bargain at all whatsoever.
And Tom, the Hardcastles tell us that they've now decided to just go forward and begin remediating their home. This is without any further movement from the FAIR Plan, and they are still pursuing legal action. However, for now, they feel that they have no choice. They are worried that their rental assistance is going to end soon.
And they can do that. There are so many families up there that they cannot go out of pocket for these rebuilds. So what do you do?
And think about this. When you're talking about litigation, when I was a juror on that case that I was placed on last year, it took a month, essentially, to get through it. But the alleged incident happened 5 years before the trial. People keep asking for delays. They keep being granted delays. It just takes a long time to get on the calendar of the judge, and the judge needs a delay. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on forever. Well, if you need that money to get your life back together, and it's going to take 5 years to work its way through the courts, how is that workable? How is that acceptable? And the answer is it's not.
And they don't want to sell their home or sell it at a loss. So for now, they are doing what so many others have been forced to do as well, which is further dip into their savings and take out loans to cover the costs. And we should point out, Tom, that as all of this is happening, the FAIR Plan is also right now seeking a 36% rate hike on their policyholders.
Of course.
Because why not?
For what they say is necessary to help cover increasing costs due to wildfires.
How about you ask for the rate increase after you pay out all the claims?
Think about this. They want us to pay more to get less. And a lot more. How does anyone but the insurance industry win? I don't see it. What a mess. What a complete mess. I feel so sorry for all of these people who are having to live through this. It's one thing to sit somewhere else and to look at this slow motion train wreck and say, oh my God, that is awful. But imagine your life becoming a never ending nightmare. And that's what they're having to deal with. Poor people. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Dan in Linwood. Dan, hello.
Yeah, I think, everybody's, and I hate the insurance companies too, and I've dealt with Fair Prime. They screwed me around in the past, but the government has in general developed a system to screw all of us. And I'll give you an example on a property we sold. It had what was called de minimis amounts of perk in it, which is so little it's not even worth mentioning, except for two guys that are friends with Governor Newsom who decided to change the law where we had to declare that, even though it was de minimis, that cost us almost $400,000 on the sale of a property. Interestingly enough, his friends that are also in the lobby that helps the environmental testing companies, they offered to get rid of the non-existent problem for about $400,000 to the buyers. The person that came with the testing unit that tested for lead, the battery in the unit that tests for lead looks just like the battery that goes in your DeWalt drill. But as she explained to me, now we have to buy the state-approved battery, which is almost $1,000 instead of $100 at Home Depot. So the people to be mad at are the government, first and foremost, who control all this stuff and complicate our life.
Well, and they're also in control of the regulation. The California Department of Insurance is there to regulate the insurance industry. And according to all these fire victims, that's not happening.